And I think we've trained ourselves to be judged. We volunteer ourselves to be judged every sentence, every line that we put out there. And I think it's a horrific way to exist, and that's why there's so much anxiety and depression when it comes to social media. And I can't tell you how many of my friends reach out and say, it's not working anymore. I don't understand what's going on. So I want you to really sit there and think about that. Why are you making content in the first place?
Hello and welcome to Profitable Graphic Designer Podcast. Today's guest is Chris Do, and Chris was actually on our 100th episode where we talked all about getting clients, and today is our 200th episode. So I'm hoping we just make this like a tradition where Chris is on our every 100th episode, which will be like in every 2 years or so. But last time we went deep on how to get clients, but today I want to go somewhere a little bit different. So we're going to talk about like personal brand, identity, content, and the human behind the brand. So Chris, for everyone who is meeting you for the first time, which I don't think it's many people, but let's not assume, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Chris Do. I'm a loud introvert, a recovering graphic designer. And I identify mostly as an educator. And it's a transition I made from working within the advertising space for 23 years. I used to make commercials and music videos. Now I have the wonderful job or opportunity to teach millions of people how to run their business and how to build their personal brand.
I love that. So you wear a lot of different hats, from like CEO to educator to content creator and speaker. So what does a normal week in your life actually look like right now?
It's a pretty good question. I don't know if there is a normal week, but some of it involves probably running a coaching call to one of my communities, being a host for a podcast or being a guest on a podcast. And usually we're doing 2 to 3 a week. Involves writing scripts for brand partnerships. They require scripts for them to approve, and probably just brainstorming on ideas on content or creating a post or an educational piece that is either distributed through LinkedIn or through YouTube.
Okay. And so prior to all of this, you built a very successful creative agency with Blind, and you could have just stayed focused on that, right? So what made you decide to go all in on teaching and building the future?
I think after 23 years of doing something, you start to question, what am I doing this for? Initially, it was to make sure I could prove my expertise and develop as a creative human. And somewhere along the way, I think I made enough money, so I didn't think I needed to work anymore. So I was looking for something more meaningful, something that was good for my creative spirit and soul. And that's when I wound up, I guess, in education and doing YouTube as a content creator.
Yeah, I love that, because I've been running my design agency for the past 11 years, and I'm also now at that point of like, okay, I've done it. I don't want to say like I don't like working with clients, because I really like when we develop something and then we see it on shelves, but at the same time, I've done it. Now I'm like, what's next? And I think that I've heard somewhere, I think it was from you, that at this point you actually do not have to work anymore. Like you could just retire, yet you work incredibly hard and show up every day. So what is really like driving you? What is your why?
I think it's a dangerous thing, especially for professional people, men and women, who work for a period of their life, get meaning from it, and then all of a sudden unplug. I think when you lose purpose, you also lose purpose for living. I noticed that in my own family, like when my dad retired, he lost some of that. He started to walk less. He started to become less active. He was reading newspapers and things like that and reading the news, but he wasn't as active. He didn't have as many things, and I could see him age faster. So even if we don't have a need to make money, I think we still have a need to do something. And I think I'm in a very great spot. I'm privileged to be in a position where I don't have to think about money. I can think about purpose and meaning, and ultimately how I want to make a dent in the universe and how I want to leave this planet.
That is amazing, especially when money is not the driver for you. And I think it's wonderful. But also you've built all of that by yourself. It's not like someone just gave you the money and now you're like, okay, I'm going to work on this. And so you're known for having like really strong opinions in a good or bad way, but mostly in a good way, and a clear like voice online. So how did you find the confidence to build a personal brand and start sharing what you really think publicly?
I've always had strong opinions. I was just not really ready to share it on any kind of wide distribution. I think it's a really scary idea when you say something that you know it's going to be recorded and saved for all to see and for all eternity, as far as I know. And I think that's a daunting thing. But if you let go of that idea that what you say lives forever and just say, like, that's a snapshot of a timeline in which I was thinking that thought. So we're allowed to grow and to change and to evolve. So I think it's dangerous if you're a young person to be saying all kinds of things because you haven't really lived that much and you haven't thought things through. The ideas have not been tested under any kind of scrutiny. But as you get into your 30s and 40s, I think it's a little bit safer to say, here's what I feel strongly about. These things I'm unlikely to change. And here are things that I'm just thinking about and it's a work in progress. And if you say that to yourself and you say it out loud or you write it like that, then I think it gives you a lot of leeway to say, you know what, I've changed my mind.
Yeah, definitely. And I see like sometimes myself when I'm recording something for YouTube or even like for my podcast, I'm always thinking like, what, not always, but I would sometimes ask myself like, what do other people think about it? What will I think about this? Because I've seen my YouTube videos from even just 2 years ago. And I'm like, oh, why did I say that? Do you ever feel like that?
Less on what I say, more on the tone in which I said it. Like, why was I so aggressive when I said that? Or why was I so agitated? Or why do I sound angry in that moment? It's probably because I was, but I think I'm growing and changing, and sometimes I'm able to kind of rein that in a little bit. There's a tale for me. If you're talking to me and my nose starts sniffling when I'm not sick, which I'm clearly today, I'm a little bit sick. If my nose starts sniffling, it's because inside is the truth, which is I'm burning up right now and I'm getting upset about something. And you're just being stubborn or pig-headed or myopic, whatever it is. And then I want to get into a battle with you. Outside, I want to remain calm, but inside, it's a burning furnace inferno. And so there are ways that you can see if you're paying attention to me. It's like, uh-oh, I think he's really upset right now, but let's find out.
Yeah, I feel like I've never seen you upset. You're just always so calm. And even if I feel a certain way, as soon as I start talking to you, I just like feel grounded. It's like so great to talk to you. And I feel that people can feel that through your YouTube videos, through your content, that you're just a normal guy with a lot of knowledge and that you really passionately want to share and educate others.
What is it about the way that I come across to you that makes you feel like I'm grounded and calm?
Because I feel that you think before you speak. You don't just share random thoughts and you don't use random words. And it just feels like everything is so calculated, even though sometimes it's not. It's just you being you.
Yeah. So maybe that's a tip for your audience is if you get into the habit of formulating your ideas into words and speaking them out loud when the consequences are low, it gives you a lot of confidence that when that topic comes up again, that you can express yourself and you already have the words, the language to be able to communicate this idea and you thought it through. Maybe that's a big part of it.
Definitely. So a lot of creatives want to build a personal brand, but they jump straight into like posting. So what do you think someone actually needs to build behind the scenes before they even start showing up online? Was there anything that you had to do and work on yourself before you started showing up?
I look at content creation as a form of public journaling. That's a phrase that I borrowed from Austin Kleon in the book Show Your Work. And I think there's just so much pressure to get it right the first time that none of us, or many of us, never create anything, never post anything of real substance. I think we also have to delineate between marketing efforts and personal branding. Personal branding is about sharing your thoughts and opinions about life, culture, creativity without the intention of trying to get a customer. It's more of a reflection of your ideas and your thinking than it is a way to build awareness, attention, or conversions. And once we get over that, I think that's really freeing and liberating. So now we have to say, well, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking about today? Now you may want to start to think about, like, who am I? What is my unique voice in the world? And what do I want to be known for? So let's start there. Let's pick a word that you think when people think of this word, or when the word is said out loud, they associate it with you. So if I were to say the king of pop, who do you think of? And that is Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson asked all the press people to refer to him this point forward as the king of pop. So we have to start thinking about the one word we want to be known for. I'd like to be known for the word personal branding, so that when you think of personal branding or a certain type of it, you think of me. And that requires a lot of work because that's a pretty broad word that's used by a lot of people. So I have my work cut out for me. And you think, oh my gosh, Chris, that's a pretty arrogant thought that you think you could be owning that kind of word. Well, it is. It's a big, audacious goal, but that's how I live my life. Now, early in our content creation days, in I think 2016-ish, 2017, almost 10 years ago, we started making videos on branding. And if you search on YouTube under the word branding, you may see several of our videos pop up in the top 10 search results. So even a word as broad as branding can be linked to you. And if you say, well, yeah, that's nice, but that was then, this is now. What have you done for me lately? I was called last year to potentially show up or audition for a role on a TV show about branding. And I was on a casting call with the directors, and the two women were asking me lots of questions. But when we were done, I asked them, how did you find me? I was thinking maybe YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, you read something. And they didn't say that at all. They said, we typed into Google, we typed into ChatGPT, and your name came up. Isn't that interesting? And so already now, if you set the intention of trying to do something, you'll probably have a higher chance or high probability of achieving that. So I'd like to be known for personal branding.
Yeah. I feel like even just a couple of years, that wasn't fully your thing, right? That's
right.
That has, because I know like from 5 years ago, or
correct.
Honestly, like we talked in 2020, that was 6 years ago. Crazy. It feels like 2 years ago. But even then, I feel like your content was all about brand strategy and how designers can add brand strategy to that and all of that. And that's how we first connected. But at that time, I don't think you were talking about personal branding. So this is new-ish.
Yes.
Right, in the past like couple
As
of
the
years,
last 3
and
years,
now content. Yes, there are many talented creatives putting out like really good content that gets almost no traction. And I've seen like profiles really with like really good content, and I know it's really good. Like they have an amazing hook, and before and then transformation and after. It's like really good storytelling, engaging. But something is missing and it's not working. So why do you think posting, let's say on Instagram, is not working for so many people right now? And what can we do to change that, like to stand out? Like what can we do?
Okay. I'm not an expert on how the algorithms change and how they reward and punish a certain type of content. I just do a lot of experiments. So I think if something was working before and it's not working now, and you don't have the ability to change, to evolve, and to adapt, I don't know what you're expecting. I mean, there's this platform we get to use for free, and it helps us to build our audience community and potentially clients down the line. And you got to use it, and it was working. And then now it doesn't seem to be working, and that's the case because they're always changing things. They're running experiments to see how they could reach more people. And I noticed for a period of time, especially during the TikTok boom era, Instagram did a lot to try to emulate TikTok. They were really scared that all of a sudden they were asleep at the wheel and this other beast comes out and takes all their users and their content. And so they copied them. And it got to a point when huge influencers like the Kardashians would say, make Instagram more like Instagram again. And there was a period, if you remember, for about a year that there were lost. And it was like, what is going on here? I can't even find content that I normally look at. And they were going through that period. So if you made a lot of changes, which people did, to adapt to that algorithm, and now it's changed again, you're kind of screwed. And it's like, let's say you're a child and you're like 8 or 9 years old, and your main goal is to make mom and dad happy, but mom and dad are bipolar or some other kind of on the spectrum. And you cannot predict what mom and dad want, and you're constantly trying to adjust yourself. Oh, sometimes you want me to be loud. Sometimes you want me to be polite. And you don't know how to make them happy. It could lead to a pretty miserable existence. So I'm not in the game of trying to figure out what the thing wants, meaning the algorithms and the social platforms. I'm in the game of thinking about, what does Chris want? What I want to do? What is my intention behind doing this? And if it doesn't get a lot of views, I don't really care. Because I believe over time, the body of work is more important than the vanity metrics that happen in the moment. It's like, imagine writing a book and every sentence of the book, you were being judged whether or not it was good or not. I'm like, I'm not done. I didn't even finish the full sentence or the paragraph or the page. And I'm playing a much longer game. And if that's a game that you're playing, you'll be totally fine. And I think we've trained ourselves to be judged. We volunteer ourselves to be judged every sentence or every line that we put out there. And I think it's a horrific way to exist. And that's why there's so much anxiety and depression when it comes to social media. And I can't tell you how many of my friends reach out and it's like, it's not working anymore. I don't understand what's going on. So I want you to really sit there and think about that. Why are you making content in the first place? My only answer is, it's to give value to other people so that I can build trust at scale. So as long as I fulfill that agreement, which is I'm giving value to people because I would like to build trust at scale, I'm going to be good. Now, the format in which it takes does evolve a little bit, and I'm not immune to the changing and fickle needs of the audience. I do want to do what the current thing is, but sometimes it doesn't matter that much. Sometimes people never want us to change, and sometimes they want us to see us change. It's also why, you had mentioned earlier, there's a period of time when I was making brand strategy content for designers, and then I became known as the pricing logo guy. And then I evolved, and now I'm talking about personal branding. And now more and more people are saying, hey, Chris is a personal branding guru or coach or thought leader or something like that. And I'm okay with that. Talk to me in 5 years. It might be something else. I don't know.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you compare the whole book and the sentence with social media so that we don't pay attention to every single post we post and if we got 2 likes or not. And honestly, I am posting the things that inspire me. I love creating content. I love talking head content. And so I create what gives me energy, but also provides value to other people. And now if 5 people see it, it's fine. I would prefer if 500 people see it, but that's fine. I know that I'm being me online. So when you show up online, how much of that is planned and how much of it is just you being yourself in the moment? Like, do you schedule everything for weeks ahead? Do you have any planner, or like, how does that work?
I very rarely schedule anything. The only time I schedule something is because I'm traveling or I'm in a different time zone. I'm a little confused. So I can try and set it up. But it's usually 1 or 2 posts at max. I don't think in the history of me creating content, I've ever scheduled 2 posts. It's only been 1 post. And I can count on 2 hands how many times I've scheduled a post. And so I write when I feel like I'm inspired by an idea. Now, luckily, I have inspiration all around me, so it's not that hard to write or create. It does require a little bit of planning if I'm going to produce a video, because I need to know what it is that we're doing. And the planning could take an hour or it could take 5 minutes. It's usually just writing down bullet points and organizing my thoughts in a sequential way. And other than that, it's all freestyle. So I will pull up a picture out of my photo album and I'll just start writing it. And these days, I will feed that rough draft into an AI program and have it clean it up. And then I'll edit its output so that it matches and I can add more nuance and a little bit of my voice back into it. And then I usually post. I don't really spend that much time thinking about it. Now, that is probably to my detriment, to be honest, because people who are really, really focused, like, here's the avatar, here's their problem, here's the solution, here's the transformation, they keep writing about it over and over again. Well, their business is very aligned, because when people think of that one thing, they think of them, and there's a offering or a product that they can buy. And so they're probably doing really well financially, and it's just easier to do. But like I said, my motivation isn't to make money. It's to share my thinking with whoever is interested in listening to it. And that's what compels me.
Yeah. And do you create different content for each platform, or do you mostly
Yes.
repurpose across channels? You create for.
Mostly I like to create native content. I think it's not that often that I have something I'm like, oh, this will work across different platforms and different formats. Usually it doesn't work like that. But here's the way I like to work now. It changed a little bit because I don't love using X anymore since it was purchased. And now my way of creating content is usually on LinkedIn first. I write a post. If that post really resonates, I might take that original idea and think about how I want to communicate that in a video format. I haven't done it that often, but I like making drafts that are low stakes, that are easy to do, testing in the marketplace and seeing like, oh yeah, I could have phrased that a little bit better. I could have not buried the headline, as they say, or I can add more examples. And I know a framework I could have added to this. And now I have that opportunity to do that. So I can turn that into a carousel if I want. I can turn that into a video or long form video. And sometimes I can use that as part of a framework for a workshop I'm going to run. Sometimes it starts as a seed and we go to the tree. And sometimes it starts as the tree and I pick the fruit and I share the fruit. It doesn't always start small and go big. Sometimes it goes big and then I go small.
Yeah.
You have to consume. Like they say the expression is don't trust the skinny chef because the chef doesn't eat. Right? That's the problem. And so where do your ideas come from if you don't read, if you don't consume, if you don't watch, or if you don't watch with great intentionality behind it?
Yeah, so I consume podcasts and mostly reels. So my ideas are coming from
Sure.
shorter form content.
Yeah, mine does
if that
too.
makes sense. Like every time when I start reading a book, I'm just like, oh, like 10 pages later, I'm like, I don't remember what I read because it's just
Okay.
not keeping me there. But with reels, it's 30 seconds, 1 minute. I'm like, okay, next. I know quickly if I like or don't like something, and then I just move on.
Okay.
But that's how I get ideas from reels and podcasts mostly, and YouTube. In YouTube content, if it's like 20 minutes, but if it's like
Okay.
an hour, unless it's like something that you talk about and it's like really going deep, then I would watch it for an hour too.
Okay, so you have the curse of a generation right now, I believe, which is a very short and shrinking attention span, yes?
Probably, yes.
That if things aren't titillating, exciting, dramatic, you're not going to stay involved. But I bet you if you were to watch Netflix, you would watch the series, yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Because they've designed it so that you can't stop watching. And so we have to trick ourselves to say, like, not everything that's used in a way to manipulate us to watch or read will do. We need to take our own initiative and do that. Now, this is going to be very, very ironic for someone who doesn't like to read. There's a book that's very dense and hard to read. It's called How to Read. And it's written by J. Adler Mortimer. I'm mixing up his name, but that's something like that. It's a book on how to read, and it's very dense. I won't bore you with the book, but I will tell you something that you might think about doing. So when you pick up a book, the way that you change how you consume the book and how intentional you are is you ask yourself, why did I read this book? Why do I want to read this book? And then you should write down the reason. What are the kind of questions I hope to learn by reading this book? And you should write those down. And now as you're reading the book, find the parts where it answers the questions. You don't need to read the book in order from cover to cover. You could just look for the parts that you want to have answers to. And if that so intrigues you, you go back and read other parts. Now, I'm a nerd, so I read from cover to cover in order. And I want to read every word, and I want to understand what is going on in the book. I'm a visual learner too, so things stick a little bit more when I see the words. For example, if you told me your name in passing, I may or may not remember it. But if you spell it and I could see it, then the chances of me recalling your name is much, much higher. Some people are the opposite. They just need to hear things. And that's how they process. They're more verbal processing. And so if you do that, it becomes a lot easier to read and consume. Okay? So here's the example I give to people too. I'm not really good at remembering faces and names. I'm terrible. Some people say you'll forget the name, but you won't forget the face. I forget the face too. I'm not talking about people I saw once. I'm talking about former students and other kinds of people. Unless you do something to stand out, it's very hard for me to remember who you are. Everyone kind of looks the same to me. Now, when it comes to movies and to TV shows, You can ask me about something I've watched, and I'll tell you what's happening in what scene, what the character motivation was, what the art direction and the lighting, and where they messed up. And the reason why is for many, many years when I was teaching sequential design, and when I was working as a director myself, I would see a scene, I'd watch it over and over again, and I would learn from it, because these are all instruction manuals for me. And so you can ask me what's in a movie, because my intention was to watch it to better myself as a director and as a storyteller. See, I have a strong opinion, right? And I'm going to react to this, because a summary of a book is not the book. And your understanding of the outline of the book isn't the book either. They may contain the big ideas, and some people are very good at understanding the big ideas and moving on. But it's also the structure of how they construct the argument, how they lead you through a thinking process, the stories that they share that make it infinitely more sticky, and the actual phrasing of the idea itself matters a lot. So some authors write very few words relative to the number of ideas that they have. In order to do that, people like Marty Neumeier, people like Blair Enns, I just love how they craft and construct words and phrases together. I don't know if it's a real term, but I use it a lot. It's called phraseology, the study of phrases, I suppose. And I'm a big fan of phraseology. And so when you're speaking and you're talking to an audience or online or something like that, it's just not the construction of the idea itself, like, oh, here's the big idea, stop eating. Okay, cool. But it's the phrasing of that and the sequence of that that makes that idea 10 times more powerful than just saying stop eating. And you'll know when you're in the presence of someone who has great verbal command rhetoric and are able to articulate complicated ideas simply, you're in awe of the way that they phrase idea or how they sequence ideas together and their phrasing of it. You don't get that by reading summaries.
Okay, so let's go back to talking about personal branding. And so what I want to ask you is, so there are creators like Jasmine Star. I know that, I saw you a few times, like talking with her, like on Instagram and whatever. But so there are creators like Jasmine Star who share a lot of their family and personal life. And then there is you who mostly shares like business and thinking and personal branding, yet you both have that like strong personal brand. So how do you decide what to share and what to keep private when building a personal brand?
It's a very subjective and personal question. I think at the risk of sounding biased or sexist, I think women relate to other women differently than how men relate to men. Okay, I think whenever I watch my wife or my mom interact with other women, there's a lot of social storytelling, how they relate to each other. Sometimes it feels like no one's listening because everyone's talking at the same time. And for someone like me, I'm like, I don't know what you're all doing. It doesn't really feel like anybody's listening to anybody, because if you were to ask them a follow-up question, they wouldn't know. They just wouldn't know. And they're like, no, it's an impression, and this is how we relate. And thank God for my wife, because when my parents come over, I don't really say too much to them. I'm thinking like, what's relevant? What's going on with them? And that's the kind of dialogue we have. And every time we have a family party, she's always elbowing me after the party. And it's like, how come you didn't talk to your brother or your mom? Like, when do you see me talking to people? Well, she's like, well, you talk to your friends, you coach people all the time, and you're talking for hours at a time. Yeah, because they need to know something and they're curious about what I need to share with them. So I'm going to do that. Like, I'm going to spend more time talking to you right now in this conversation than probably 3 days talking to my wife. There's a couple things, because we're married almost 30 years. There's things we say and things we don't need to say to each other. We have our own habits and routines. But that's how men generally, this is a broad generalization here. But like if I talk to my dad, I'm like, Dad, things look like they're going well? Yes. Okay, I'm glad we had this talk. Right? Whereas when I talk to my mom, she'll be like, honey, I saw you here, and what were you doing there, and what did they want from you? Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. And that's how women tend to relate. So if Jasmine and I were the same person but different sex or genders, we might be totally different. That's what I'm guessing. But then you take the extreme version of Jasmine, then you take an extreme version of Chris. I have a different philosophy. I think for her to relate to her, to buy into her story is to buy into everything about her daughter, her husband, fitness, family, furnishings, all that kind of stuff. And that's what you're buying into, which is awesome. And she is like first person in her family to go to college, I think. And she's a Latina, and she's a proud Latina, strong woman, a really super awesome human being. I've hung out with her a couple of times. And then there's me. I don't know. I think I'm more cerebral. I like to think. I like to have critical conversations, or conversations that we can do some critical thinking about, so I can test my ideas with you. And I'm absorbed in the world of culture, pop culture, high culture, low culture, books, ideas, people. So I'm more interested in talking about that than I am about, here's what I did with my son, or what they're, unless it's relevant to the larger conversation I want to have, I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And where do you sit on that spectrum?
I am honestly more on your side. And I think that that's the reason why I asked, because I never felt like I want to share like my family, or like anything that I do that's besides like 9 till 2, because I work only 9 till 2. And so I feel like I don't want to share where I'm going, what I'm drinking, what I'm eating. But then like building this personal brand, it's just like, where do I cut the line? Like, how do I share? What do I share? Do I focus on business and branding only? Do I focus on, you know what I mean?
I do. But let's be clear. Jasmine is not sharing about what she's drinking and eating.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
She's sharing when she goes to the gym, the adoption process, and all those things, which I feel
personal.
are personal. So when I go to the gym, I don't share that. And so I was wondering, like, do we share that? Like, where do we cross the line?
There's no line to cross. It's what it is that you want to talk about. So let me ask you a question here. Don't answer any of this if it feels uncomfortable. Are you in a relationship?
Yeah.
Do you have children?
Yes.
How many children do you have?
2. So I'm married, and I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Okay. And what does your husband do for a living?
He's an engineer in oil and gas. So it's like very not creative.
Oh, wow. Okay. And where do you live?
In Austin, Texas.
And what is your relationship like with your children?
We have a great relationship. That's why I work until 2, because I pick them up from school. Then I hang out with my 6-year-old because I really value one-on-one time with each of them. So then I hang out with her until like 4 or 5, and then I go pick up the 2-year-old. And then most of the time it's just the 3 of us until my husband is done at 5. And then we all hang out together, make dinner, watch something, and they go to sleep at 8.
And then what do you do after 8?
After 8 is usually me and Brandon just hanging out. We would maybe watch something, but it's usually, again, like something very short. Or we would just talk about our day, like how I spent my day. For example, I would, like today, I will tell him, like, so I had an amazing podcast with Chris, and we talked about this and that. And he's already like involved in my business from that sense, where I just talk to him. But we have like, a great relationship where it's just like friends, right?
Okay. This is perfect. All right. So you never talk about your personal relationships, right?
Online, publicly?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay. So here's a possible way for you to talk about it. You can say something like, how I'm able to raise my 2 daughters?
Yes, 2 girls.
How am I able to raise my 2 daughters, and how I protect the hours between 2 and 8, because it's all about them, and still manage a business that does high 6 figures, 7 figures, whatever it is you want to say. And then I think people become really interested in the story, like you're a busy professional person, but you're able to prioritize your children. This is very important for other working women who want to have children or have children and can't find that balance. And this is the story that you're not able to tell right now. And so they're going to see you as another person talking about design, brand, or packaging, or whatever it is you talk about. So we're looking for anything that makes you a little bit different. And if you can be different, be different.
I love that, because I'm always trying to find my voice and like what I like, how you were talking, at least you used to talk about how you're a loud introvert. And so I was
Yes.
trying to figure out what are my two words, but then I always go back to like creative CEO. Like those are the two things that I'm finding. Like creative, I really love being creative to the level that I want to start my skincare line because I believe that would be so creative, like figuring out the ingredients. And I know it doesn't sound like creative, like in a general sense of like maybe video editing or design, but I find it really creative. And then also I'm a CEO, like I'm not just a graphic designer or just a brand designer. I honestly love managing people and figuring out the systems and like being that CEO. So those are my kind of like creative CEO two words. And then from there, I always go like, okay, what do I actually want to share that feels like me, but that is valuable or useful to other people? Okay, so with a public facing career, and we just now talked about like relationships and whatever. Do you have a close circle of friends or relationships that are outside of your business and work?
Not really.
No.
No. I think a lot of the friction that exists in a relationship comes from living separate lives. There's that group of friends that we grew up with. There's my coworkers or my employees or my boss. And then there's social circles of professional friends or something like that. So it's a lot of different groups to manage. And then we're taking what little precious time we have and we're dividing it amongst all these people.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out, oh, so when I hang out with the friends I grew up with, we do that because out of familiarity. We have very different lives, different interests, because maybe they're in the oil and gas or somebody's in the food industry and I'm a content creator on YouTube. There's not a lot that bring us together. And that's cool. And I envy the people who do that. But I don't maintain those relationships, so they're kind of gone.
Yeah.
But the people that I spend the most time with, we're doing similar things. Some work with me, some work for me. And it's much more interesting because now I've taken 2-3 groups and I've smashed them together. And then I can go as deep as I want. And it's just with one person or two people. And that works well for me. So I believe in a lot of work-life integration. And that's not just for my family, but it's also for my teams. So almost everybody that I talk to on a semi-regular basis is either working with me, for me, or I'm working for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm literally the same way. I do have maybe a couple of friends that I grew up with and they even now like live back in Serbia or they're like in France or Spain, people who have moved. And so I maintain those relationships. But most of the time is because even though we do different things, we're at the same level. Those are not people who are not in business or don't care about their careers and whatnot. So yeah, I totally understand. Now, where do you see yourself and your company, the future in 5 years from now? Like, what is the goal?
Well, I'm still sorting out like what I'm doing this year. I know where I'm headed towards, which is to create community that exists on multiple dimensions, and I think that's really important for me. So, for example, this is an asymmetrical relationship, a parasocial relationship where lots of people get the feeling that they know me because I create content, but there's not a lot of ways for us to have dialogue. They slip in the DMs, they make a comment, I respond to their comment, but it's not real time, it's not synchronous, it's asynchronous, and that's okay. But when I'm out in the street and I'm teaching, running a workshop, that's a real dialogue and that's pretty cool, but that is dependent on who's organizing the event and where I am physically. I'm trying my best to create a space where people can come hang out with me by invitation, obviously, not just randomly, where we can share a meal, listen to someone inspirational, do an activity together as a small group. And I'm really excited about that. So some of the things I've organized, like this fishing trip or the trip to Japan, it takes a lot of work to put those things together. But I think as you do something more and more, the workload becomes less and it becomes a lot easier and the experience becomes richer. And so I just need to keep iterating on these ideas. So some part of physical space, and then also, say for example, we go to Barcelona, we rent a mansion, and we book a trip for 24 people, and they come there and they live in the mansion. So we eat, we walk, we do things, we talk, they get to know each other, and I'm able to help whenever it feels right to do so. So there's some structure, some learning, but a lot of free time and independent thinking. And plus, we get to explore a city together. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds really interesting. So for people who want to go deeper into your world and learn more about check out your offers, like where should they go? Like your website, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn now. And so yeah, feel free to share also like any of your offers.
Sure. The easiest place is to send them to thefuture.com. It's FUTUR, thefuture.com. But if you want to follow me on social to kind of see things that are happening semi-real time, you just follow me at the Chris Doe, and Doe spelled D-O. I'm on most social platforms, and I'm pretty active on all of them.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for Chris for coming back on the show. It really means a lot to have you here again for our 200th episode, and hopefully we will do this again in about 2 years for our 300th episode. But yeah, thank you again so much for being my guest, even though I know you're sick, but it was good.
Thank you very much. Congratulations on 200. I look forward to talking to you at 300.